Turkey has been and is a hotbed for terror attacks. Several groups, including ISIS and PKK, have carried out bloody attacks inside Turkey's borders. Terror expert and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, goes on the record. Nice to see you, Doctor.
It's great to be with you.
And thank you for your service in the U.S. Navy. I appreciate it, sir. Okay, you were here today to testify before the U.S. Senate. Why?
Well, due to the courage of Senator Cruz, who has finally insisted that our Congress and the President Obama administration address why they've ignored the language, why there's been a purging of the language of jihad, Islamism, Salafism, the ideology that threatens us, and this is why we're continuing to lose, as our analysts, those who are called upon to protect us, aren't even able to look at the minds. We're supposed to somehow predict violent extremism, and what I testified about was, as a Muslim who loves my faith in this month of Ramadan, the reason I took time to come here and testify is there's actually nothing that demonizes us more than preventing reform from happening, preventing the reformists from acknowledging that we have a problem within the House of Islam. That's not Islamophobic, that's not bigoted, it's actually tough love, and that's what we need. And our government so far has been willfully negligent and blind, and has actually been helping the regimes around the world that want to look at Islam as having a PR problem.
All right, President Obama won't say radical Islam. If you could talk to him as a Muslim man, what would you tell him?
I tell him the greatest country in the world, America, was created in this battle against theocracy. Why can't Muslims have the same respect? Don't treat us with the bigotry of low expectations. Shift the axis of center of gravity of the Department of Homeland Security from this vague, nebulous countering violent extremism to countering violent Islamism. Then the Islamist theocratic mentality of Nidal Hassan, of the Chattanooga shooter, of the couple in San Bernardino, the homophobia of Omar Mateen would have been predicted as being a precursor to the violent homophobia, the violent anti-Semitism. But as long as we hold them only accountable to countering violent extremism, we're going to continue to miss the precursors that are obvious. And by the way, I tell them, stop listening to our so-called allies, the Saudis and the Iranians, who are actually cauldrons that brew these militants.
All right, why do you think the president won't say radical Islam?
Because he's too beholden to foreign allies that tell us they're our allies, but yet are cauldrons. His advisors are Muslim Brotherhood sympathizers who are part of the global Islamist movement. And it just takes too much work. Why should we worry about what's happening in the House of Islam? Let our faith community continue to be dominated by the Islamists and the theocrats. It's just too hard. And I think today's hearing proved that, you know, it can be done. Americans are mature enough to have a frank conversation about political Islam and not demonize Muslims in the process.
And it's been very tough for so many Muslims in this country just because of that.
And I think it makes it harder. The denial of the left actually causes a polarization. There's nothing that would melt the bigotry away more than for Americans to say, oh my gosh, Muslims are at the head of the spear of this, and our Muslim reform movement is all about that. We have a declaration about freedom and the rejection of the caliphate that has been ignored because nobody wants to talk about radical Islam.
Anyway, Dr. Jasser, always nice to see you.
Anytime, Greta.